PCVR is weird. It's really easy to find entry-level headsets, and it's really easy to find super high-end headsets, but there isn't a ton in the middle. This is the Pimax Crystal Light, a headset which offers that middle ground. At $900, it certainly isn't cheap, but for some people it might be the best option at the price point. It does what a lot of other headsets don't. It's a wired PCVR headset. It uses SLAM tracking instead of Lighthouse tracking. It comes with controllers and an audio solution. Not all of that is great though, but there is at least one standout feature. Full disclosure, this is a loaner unit that Pimax sent to me for me to look at in a video. I'm not being directly paid, but they did give me affiliate links. I am allowed to say whatever the hell I want though. I think this headset is really targeting two kinds of people. The kind who want the best visuals at this price point no matter the cost, and the type who are on older headsets and want to upgrade but don't want a Quest. The Crystal Light would make a really good drop-in replacement for something like a Reverb G2 or even an Index if you get the Lighthouse faceplate. Overall build quality of the hardware is decent. It's put together well and feels solid enough, but I would not call it ultra premium. The head strap creaks a lot when I move it around and it flexes more than I would like it to. The IPD adjustment also doesn't feel amazing. It uses this like roller wheel thing that takes forever to adjust. I'm also not the biggest fan of how the controllers feel. The trigger and grip have different resistance and it would feel a lot better if they matched. The joystick has this really aggressive upwards curve that doesn't feel great under the thumb, but otherwise it feels fine. I suppose I can't complain too much, since most other headsets at this price point or above don't even come with controllers in the first place. The real appeal of this headset are the optics and visual quality. They're pretty good. It's a DisplayPort headset, so you don't have to deal with wireless compression. It also has a pretty high resolution compared to a lot of other headsets. It's really only outclassed by things that are like double its price. I've been daily driving a Galaxy XR this year, and the Crystal Light is the first headset I've put on after it that doesn't feel significantly worse resolution-wise. The panels in this thing can even be used at 120 Hz, but good luck actually driving them at a high resolution. My computer is not a pushover, and I struggle to hit 90 FPS a lot of the times. I've found myself running this thing on the medium or even low setting to keep the performance I'm comfortable with. I don't use any space warp or upscaling or anything though, so you can drive this thing on a lower end system if you're willing to deal with that. The screens are also capable of local dimming, which is really nice. It's a happy medium sitting between LCD and OLED, where instead of having one big backlight, there's a bunch of smaller ones so you're able to get like better blacks and better contrast and stuff. It's better than regular LCD, but it isn't quite as good as OLED. Maxing it out does limit the max brightness of the headset, so I've been running it at about half. This also helps minimize blooming, which is a sort of haze that's caused by brighter zones spilling over into darker ones. It's really cool that you're able to control this, since on other headsets like the Quest Pro, it's just an on or off. There is an amount of mirror, which is basically when the screen looks dirty when it's really not. This is something you usually see brought up with OLED screens, but it does affect all screens. At the brightness setting I use with the local dimming on, I don't really notice it unless I'm purposely looking for it, even in really bright scenes. On my Quest 3, for example, I notice it all the time in bright worlds. The Crystal Light also has really nice lenses. They're glass aspherics and provide an extremely clear picture and also have very minimal glare. They aren't perfect though, but no lens is. The edge-to-edge clarity is worse than what you would get out of a good pancake lens like the ones on a Quest 3, or even on Pimax's own Crystal Super. Finding the sweet spot was actually kinda difficult for me at first, since being outside of it is different from any other lens I've ever used. Blurring doesn't really happen until you're at the extreme outer edges. What happens is things distort instead. These distortions are very subtle if you don't know to look out for them, and even though I didn't see them at first, I still felt nauseous after a little bit. What happens is the image kinda just curves. Once you know what they look like, they're pretty easy to find, and the sweet spot is a lot more forgiving than some other headsets, so that's nice at least. The lenses also suffer from chromatic aberration or color fringing. If you don't know what that is, the best way I can describe it is the TikTok logo. I only really find it noticeable near the edges of the lens most of the time, but if something pitch black is on a very bright background, it is extremely noticeable. Where I see it the most is when I get like a Steam VR "Your friend is now playing" pop-up. Overall, I think the clarity and minimal glare outweigh the issues the lenses have. I personally still prefer a good pancake lens because of the edge-to-edge clarity, and also I think the form factor is quite a bit better. I do also find the chromatic aberration really distracting at times, but that's mainly because I'm not used to it. The field of view I get on this headset is also pretty good. It's a bit bigger, especially vertically, than what I get on my Quest 3, and pretty comparable to what I get on my Pro. Do keep in mind I have comfort mods on both of those headsets, so I'm able to wear them in a much more ideal way. If I were to get some stuff for the Crystal Light, I could probably squeeze a few more degrees out of it. I do think the comfort of the Crystal Light out of the box is really bad. Now, part of this might just be the fact that I've been daily driving pancake lens headsets for over 2 years now. Even putting weight aside, they just have a lot better weight distribution. The Crystal Light, despite its name, is pretty damn heavy. I don't think I would find it as bad if I was going straight from my index to this headset, but I do still think the index is comfier. The type of foam Pimax is using for the padding and especially the facial interface just feels awful to me. It is really scratchy. The facial interface also just doesn't fit my face super well. Almost all contact with it is made exclusively with my forehead. The rear padding also is really strange. At first it just felt like a block of foam that was wedged back there that wasn't really meant to be there. But the more I used the headset, the more it started to almost break in, and it was a really weird sensation. It did end up comfier than it started, though. I still wish there was more support lower down on my head. It doesn't really cup the back of my head like other headsets do. The rest of the head strap is fine, I guess. It's easy enough to adjust, and it comes with a top strap, thank God. There are comfort mods that exist, and I'd imagine they help out quite a bit, but I don't have any. If I were to get one, I would probably go for a counterweight first. Also, a word of warning, if you need to take the facial interface off for anything, good luck getting it back on. I had to take it off and it took me genuinely 20 minutes to get it to snap back into place. It is a terrible design. A very mediocre part of this headset is the audio. The stock speakers actually get louder than I thought they would, loud enough that I can't keep them on max volume. They just sound very tinny, even compared to something like a Quest 3, but especially compared to a Reverb G2 or an Index. Thankfully, there is a headphone jack built into the headset, so you can easily use your own headphones. Alternatively, Pimax sells DMOS earphones, which are basically just Index or Reverb G2 speakers. I think they're actually made by the same company. The microphone sounds like it was an afterthought. I think I've heard webcams that have better mics. Obviously, this doesn't matter a ton if you play a bunch of single-player games, but if you do need a good mic, there is a USB-C port hidden away at the top of the headset, so you can easily plug your own in and use that. Tracking quality is also pretty mid. By default, it uses slam tracking similar to a Quest. It isn't as good as Meta's, but it's not bad. I haven't really had the headset lose tracking while I'm using it, and it performs well in environments with moderate light. I don't think you'll need to cover your walls in painter's tape or QR codes like I've seen some people do for other headsets. Unfortunately, I haven't had it remember my room in the right spot a single time. So every time I start a new session, or even sometimes after I put the headset down and picked it back up, I have to redraw my boundary and set the floor level again. It got to the point where I just turned the boundary off. I still need to set the floor level, but it's a lot less annoying. The controller tracking isn't awful, but I wouldn't exactly call it great either. It's better than I remember Windows mixed reality tracking being. The controllers actually have decent prediction when the headset's cameras can't see them. It just doesn't try and do it for very long before completely freezing them. I had no problems in games like Contractors or Synth Riders, except for the fact I hate tracking rings and always hit them on stuff. On Beat Saber, however, I could not use these. Sometimes they handle fast movements just fine, but other times they just lose tracking for seemingly no reason. They also take a bit longer than I'd like to regain that tracking. Both of those things could be remedied if you want to spend more money on Pimax's Lighthouse faceplate, which lets you use Lighthouse tracking instead. If you just want to use controllers or trackers, it may be a better idea to just get a continuous calibration tracker, although to be fair, those aren't much cheaper nowadays. Another thing that's pretty decent functionality-wise at least is the software. It does feel more like an optional utility tool than something everyone should have to use though. The layout is pretty bad, and there's also a lot of settings some people might find confusing. I personally don't mind the settings part. I like having a lot of control over the hardware I'm using. Some cool things you can do are like setting the hardware and software IPDs to be different, or there's also built-in upscaling that works on pretty much any game. It does look worse than just running the game at a higher resolution, but it's a lot less resource intensive, and some people might think it looks better than just running at the lower resolution by itself. It does seem like Pimax wants to be their own version of Steam though, which is a little annoying. A lot of space is taken up by like a store or a wallet or account settings, when I really do think more of it should be your headset settings, which currently open in their own tiny little window. Pimax also has their own OpenXR runtime, which is kinda cool, I guess. I can't live without my Steam VR plugins, so I have not tried it. So do I think you should buy this headset? Well, that really depends. If you're on an older headset, it could make a pretty good upgrade. But if you're on something like a Quest 3 or Pro, it's more of a side grade at best. The only thing it outclasses them in is visuals. You're trading away comfort, audio, and tracking quality for really good visuals. If you play a lot of games where you're active or are socializing with people, it probably isn't a great option. But if you mainly do stuff like flight and racing sims where a lot of that stuff doesn't matter a ton, it would be a really good option. You may also want to take into account the company behind it. Pimax is not known for having amazing quality control. By this point, I don't really see them any better or worse than like HTC or Big Screen or Shiftall, but I'm not you. I do think it seems like they've been getting better recently, but it's also not like I'm a customer. If you're interested in purchasing a Crystal Light, or I think anything else from Pimax, they did give me a discount code and affiliate link which will get you 2% off. I do get paid if you use it though, so I won't be offended if you choose not to. I personally don't think I could get by with this as my only headset. I might think differently if I was coming straight from an older headset, but if I was given the choice between a Crystal Light and a Quest 3, I'm taking the Quest 3. The biggest thing to me is the wire. I think the visuals of the Crystal Light are really good, but I don't think they're quite to the point where I would warrant being tethered to my computer again.